In this video, we're going to be looking at the consumer and producer burden of a tax. So in the previous video, we looked at taxes and how we can calculate them and how we can draw it on a diagram. But the question is, when a government imposes a tax, how can we calculate who pays it? Okay, so for example, a government imposes an indirect tax, and this indirect tax is on cigarettes. Okay, and let's say that this tax is £3 per pack. Okay, so the question is, does the producer pass all of this tax, all of this £3? Does all of that £3 get paid by the consumer? Does that get passed on? And the answer to that is it depends heavily on the PED, the price elasticity of demand. So in short, if PED is inelastic, okay, so if the consumers are not very price sensitive and they're willing to pay higher prices, then the consumer is going to pay more of the tax. The producer is going to be perfectly happy to pass that on to the consumer. If PED is elastic, so the consumers are very price sensitive, then the consumer is going to pay less of the tax because the producer is going to be reluctant to pass on that extra tax onto the consumer for fear that they're going to lose customers. Okay, so if we look at this now on a diagram, I'm going to show you three diagrams now. So here is a fairly neutral demand curve, okay, unit elasticity, so PED equals -1. Okay, we have S shifting to the left to S plus tax, the new supply curve, okay, and the quantity going backwards to Q1. The original price was price P, so that's at the original equilibrium before the tax. When the tax gets imposed, the price rises to the new price P plus tax up here, okay? If you draw a line between the supply curves, you'll work out what the tax is, so that's what this line is here. You'll find out what the tax is per unit, okay? And that's this line here. So from P1 all the way up to P plus tax, and that's going to be the tax per unit. So P1 is what the producer receives for the good in terms of revenue, and the rest of it gets paid to the government. Okay, now if we break down this box here, okay, into sections, the area of this box above the original market equilibrium price, this box B here, that is the portion that the consumer pays as tax. Okay, and this box A here between P1 and P, this is the proportion that the producer pays on tax. Okay, so taking that into account, now we're going to switch to a different diagram with an inelastic demand curve. So if we look down here, can you see this demand curve is quite clearly a lot steeper than this one. This here is inelastic. Okay, so now have a look at the demand curve, okay, and have a look. We've applied a tax again in this model, and have a look at the difference between how much the consumer pays and how much the producer pays. The consumer pays all of this, box B, while the producer only pays a very small amount, box A. Okay, whereas up here, the consumer was paying still quite a lot, but the producer was paying more towards it. With inelastic demand, the producer takes advantage of the consumer, and they take advantage of the consumer's willingness to pay and pass more of the tax on to the consumer. Okay, so inelastic demand, box B, is bigger, the consumer burden. So if we now go on to the next diagram, in this diagram, as you can see, the demand curve is elastic. The consumers are very price sensitive. So if the price were to go up even a little bit, the consumers would leave the market and they would not buy this product anymore. Okay, and as you can see, look at the quantity. You can see the quantity has gone down quite a lot because the price has gone up due to the tax increase. Now again, turn your attention to the tax. The tax is the difference between the two supply curves. So that's that vertical distance there, and that box is going to be the total tax that the government is going to get. Okay, so between the old equilibrium price, the old market equilibrium, and the new price, that's how much the consumer pays. So box B now is very, very small. Okay, whereas the market price to P1, which the producer receives, that's a lot larger now. Okay, whereas before with the inelastic demand curve, it was the opposite way around. The consumer paid a lot more, the producer paid a little. With the elastic demand curve, the producer pays a lot, as you can see by box A, and the consumer pays only a little bit. Okay, so elastic demand, box A is bigger. Anyway, I hope this all made sense. If there's any questions, please leave them down below and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.